I fear that you're all missing the plot on the Lindsay Clancy case, so let me clear up a few things for you. The defense has entered a not guilty by reason of insanity plea. What that means is not that she did not commit the crime, but that at the time that she committed the crime, she was not legally sane enough to know what she was doing, and therefore she should not have to serve prison time, but instead should be treated at a mental institution. Now, the prosecution still has the burden of proving that Lindsay Clancy committed those murders. As with any single criminal case, the prosecution always has the burden of proving that the defendant committed the crime. They are always innocent until proven guilty. So technically, the jury could come back and say that Lindsay Clancy is not guilty. Here's the problem, though. The defense has all but stipulated to the fact that Lindsay Clancy committed those murders. Actually, earlier in the trial, he tried to stipulate to the fact that Lindsay Clancy committed the murders, and the prosecution denied that stipulation and said that she would not enter into that stipulation, which is her right to do so. So she has now put herself back on the burden of proving that Lindsay Clancy committed those murders. That's why we're hearing evidence from the medical examiners and the officers and her ex-husband about how that day went down, the timelines, what they saw, how they were killed. You know, you're hearing evidence from the medical examiner saying their cause of death, things of that nature, because she still has to prove that Lindsay Clancy committed those murders. The defense has shifted his focus away from not did she commit the murders, but was she legally sane at the time those murders were committed. His whole defense is that she was in postpartum psychosis. What does that mean? It means that he is not trying to argue that she didn't commit the murders. I see a lot of people with a lot of conspiracy theories saying the husband did it. If you want to believe that, that's fine, but that is not what her defense attorney is putting on the stand. He is saying, yes, she committed these crimes, but at the time she did it, she wasn't in her right mind. Let's not forget that both Patrick and Lindsay have pending medical malpractice lawsuits out as well. So, in theory, a not guilty plea or a not guilty verdict would not help them in their medical malpractice suits. Let's remember that anything that happens in this criminal trial can influence their malpractice suits. So if you want to create a conspiracy theory, that one makes more sense than the one you guys are coming up with. Not saying and not accusing anybody of doing anything wrong, but that's a conspiracy that makes more sense. So let's recap. Lindsay Clancy is on trial for murder, 3 counts of murder of her 3 children. The defense has all but stipulated that she has committed those murders. Because the prosecution denied the defense's attempt to actually stipulate to the crime being done by Lindsay, the prosecution still has the burden of proving that Lindsay Clancy committed those murders. So technically, could the jury come back as not guilty? Yes. Would that probably be against the manifest weight of the evidence? Absolutely. So what's going to happen is essentially they're going to have 2 choices. Not guilty by reason of insanity or guilty. A guilty verdict would come with probably, I'm guessing, a life sentence in prison. A not guilty by reason of insanity is going to carry a sentence of going to a mental institution. And so what happens in Massachusetts, because I looked this up, is that she will start with a 40-day observation period in a severe psychiatric ward, probably the same one that she's been being held at up until this time. They will then evaluate her, and the sentence can continue indefinitely until they determine that she is not a threat to herself or society any longer. So the mental institution stay could actually be longer than a life sentence, technically, because there's no set release time. It's whenever they decide that she no longer is a harm to society or herself. At the same time that this is happening, she has, and her ex-husband Patrick have, pending medical malpractice lawsuits against doctors that treated her postpartum, saying that they did not meet the standard of care and did not diagnose her properly in order to get her the care that she needed in order to avoid the murder of her children. The criminal case can impact that case, those cases. A not guilty by reason of insanity verdict would incredibly help Lindsay and her husband in the medical malpractice suits, because it would show that she was in some sort of psychosis episode that the doctors did not help prevent. Do you see the correlation there? Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Now please stop spreading misinformation online.